This is Annuity Straight Talk. Since 2008, your host, Bryan Anderson, has helped clients nationwide navigate the complex market for annuities. With Bryan's assistance, hundreds of clients have achieved a profitable and secure retirement. I would know, because Bryan has answered many of my questions concerning annuities and retirement planning. So that you can benefit as well, let's get started. Here's Bryan.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Annuity Straight Talk podcast, episode number 20. My name is Bryan Anderson, founder and creator of Talk.Com. Went live in November of 2018, really got serious about it once we got a bunch of content in there, probably early the spring of 2009. Been doing it for a while. I've been getting, I got a lot of love from a lot of people I've met over the years and made some really good friends, people I consider to be family. A lot of good clients, have helped a lot of people without making money. I love doing what I do because I'm trying to spread truth and ideas to people who really need some help out there. So here we are. I'm going solo again. And next week, I'll probably have a guest for you, maybe another one of my advisors that I spent the year trying to cultivate relationships with. So last week, I talked about how to maximize Social Security. Now, there's a lot of different, financial services is no different than any other profession, so to speak, to the extent that you ask 12 people a question, you're going to get 12 different answers. And, so people in all facets, when we're looking to a professional for advice, a lot of times you need a second or a third opinion. So what I do is, again, which I've said before, is my contrarian opinion can be proved mathematically at times. Other times it is an opinion, but I will offer several justifications. Whether it works for you or not is up to you. There are a lot of people that say, hey, I really like that point of view. But the idea is to just open your mind to and open your eyes to a different way of thinking about things. And hopefully that leads many of you to make better choices. No matter what it means for me, I'm just here to help. So running off Social Security last weekend, so I wanted to talk to you about how to use the numbers once you define the best Social Security strategy or whatever you like to do most. Now, we talked last week and I said, hey, this is going, there's almost no instance unless you're continue to work. There's no reason why you should delay it. You should always take it as soon as you possibly can. And we looked at some math behind that, and I'm going to take it one step further and show you how you use that to do income planning in retirement. Because there are some people who can live on Social Security and do comfortably and are happy with it. There are other people who need to draw from their portfolio. And I get the question a lot, if I'm going to use an annuity in retirement, what's the perfect balance, the perfect amount of annuity? And the question, again, that's one of those questions you ask 12 different people, you get 12 different answers. I always say use whatever amount you want, but you got to see there's a lot of factors. So it depends on how much money you have. It depends on how much money you need to withdraw every year. Risk tolerance. There's some people don't want any risk at all. And there's others that don't mind the risk and maybe have enough assets that they can weather the storm and still take income. Unfortunately, I wish I could say, here's the percentage of your money that should go into an annuity and you never have to worry about it again. But for every individual, it's different. Some people just really like annuities and they, buy more of them because it's protected money. They get a nice growth rate out of it and they always get access to it. But that could go on a subject of a different podcast. And we've talked about that in a lot of different ways as well. So what I'm going to do with you guys, and I'm going to talk about a recent case that came across my desk. And that's what gave me the idea to revisit the Social Security article. Is that I built the spreadsheet years ago. It's just a simple way to look at it, very simple. And when this case came in, I realized I hadn't sent anything out on the newsletter in probably 2.5 years on the topic of Social Security. So we looked at it, and the gentleman that came to me, he and his wife were looking at, first they had to decide what to do with Social Security, and then they were trying to figure out how to plan for any other income needs, whatever that may be. And they were getting, they felt like the question or the answer to the question. It was just like, a solution really is what solution is the right word. The solution was extremely complicated. So let's peel that back a little bit. There's a 4% withdrawal rule. There's managed money. There's bonds. There's stocks. There's coupon payment, interest payments on bonds, CDs. There's dividends on stocks, ETFs, mutual funds. It's a careful balance of all those things that you've got risk tolerance. The beta is your risk, the alpha is your return. How do you balance all those things, and how do you mold them right into it? And so I've become pretty good at getting people to pull off the complex stuff. And I'm going to take you through a real simple scenario of how to boil it down to the most basic way to figure out what you need for income. And so a lot of times, what I feel like I'm really good at is to get people to realize that the answer is not complex. The solution is not complex, and get them to a point where it's really in very, very simple terms. And then they can decide from there, hey, okay, do you even want to use an annuity, or, how are you going to blend your portfolio once you figure out what you need, right? So let me share my screen and I'll talk to you. And instead of talking about all the technical jargon that, to be honest with you, a lot of analysts don't even truly understand, they just talk about it. We'll do that. I'll share my screen and we will go from there. Give me a second to load up the podcast hallway. So as I'm doing this, remember to, if you'd like to have me look at your numbers, we can go to the website, annuitystraighttalk.com, green schedule a call button on any page. Set up an appointment. It's pretty simple. Just a couple of button clicks, put your name in, maybe any notes you want me to know about before I give you a call. And also you can call 800-438-5121 and it'll ring right here to my cell phone, which is silenced right now. I don't want it to buzz and interrupt us. So here we are with this couple, and I've got a couple of rows hidden to start with, and I'll develop the spreadsheet. I know on YouTube, and I got to figure out a way to do that. On YouTube, the screen's kind of stretched weird, so I got to look at a formatting issue. I'm not perfect, but I'm working on it. It'll get better. And so here we are. So this is the husband is 63 years old. Now they have already retired, and they've decided to. Now I said that it's not always, it's usually not best mathematically to delay Social Security, but they've already decided they're going to wait until full retirement ages, which is 66 and 2 months, I believe. And so one thing I do, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. So I'm not going to, if he says we're set and this is what we're going to do, we're taking it at 66. That's fine. I'll work with those numbers. So their question was whether they take it at 66 or wait until age 70. And so I don't get anywhere and my job is not to tell you, oh, you totally screwed that up. You're doing the wrong thing. It just puts people in a combative position. So we're trying to play offense in retirement is what I say. So let's look at what decisions you've made, how we can improve on those or make some of the future decisions easier. So I'm not going to tell them, although we could look at the numbers. Hey, what if you took it right now? But he's going to wait a few years. And at 66, he's going to get $36,827 per year. And if he waits till 70, he's going to get $46,651 per year. So good income earner, probably at the higher end of the Social Security benefits. And so he's got a nice, healthy benefit weighting. And what we did last week, we looked and said, okay, $36,000 per year. This is your cumulative income total. Okay. Or $46,000 a year. This is your cumulative income total. At what point did they break even? And that is right at the age of 84. I think that was about where we were last week as well. So he's going to get out. So for a 63-year-old male, I'm guessing the life expectancy is about 18 years or so. So that puts him at age 81. So this is why they delay it. They're actuaries. An actuary is basically a mathematical scientist. That's why they do it this way, because they understand that the average 63-year-old is not going to live past 81. Half are going to die before, half are going to die later. That's where life expectancy comes from in very simple terms. So on average, if the break even isn't until age 84, and that's the point at which you have where the later starting payment stream actually catches up in aggregate payments. So although $46,000 was, it's just about $10,000 higher, that's a lot extra. It takes several years to actually catch up and get aggregate payments. So if you waited till 70, it would cost him $147,000. So that's these 4 years of income would be lost, meaning since he's already retired, he would have to fund that out of his own pocket. I hope that makes sense because it's extremely clear to me. It would cost him $147,000 out of pocket in lost payments to wait for the age 70 payment stream. And I look at that and I say, wow, I mean, you realize that at age 84, so $147,000, just a cash flow perspective, extra $10,000 a year is going to take him till age 99 to get that $147,000 back. That does not even address the time value of money, which is take it early. You don't have to spend the 147. What would that grow to over a 22-year period, I think is what is here. Even at 3%, put in a fixed annuity or a bunch of CDs or whatever, and you're going to have probably $250,000, $300,000 at extremely conservative rates. So there's just I haven't seen a scenario unless you're still working. That's the deal. So we've got a wife as well. That's the first set of hidden tiles. And Illumina, I just want to make sure that that it's easy enough to focus on this. Okay. So we'll put her front and center in the same thing. So she's a couple years older. She's not 66. She's 65. Oops. So she's 65 and she's only got to wait a year after a year at 66 and 2 months. Oh, sorry. That was my bad. That was the payment at age 66. So she's 65 now. She waits a year, gets 19.8, or she waits 4 years to get 25,352. The aggregate payment streams match at, what do you know? Age 84. Mathematical scientists, they have this figured out. So if you figure out how to play the game, you can play it to your advantage. All right. So anytime in here, so life expectancy for her at 65 is probably right around 84, I would assume. So we got the husband at 81, her at 84. It's about a 3-year difference. I think that's probably fair. So there's it's the exact same thing. So for her to get wait till age 70, it's going to cost him $99,000 out of pocket. Now, we're going to get a little more technical with these guys because they've thought of options where, hey, maybe the wife waits to collect at 70, maybe the husband waits. If one of them waits, one of them doesn't, things like that. But the numbers are all going to work out the same. They should both take the cash flow as soon as they can get it. So if they both waited till 70, you're looking at almost $250,000 they've got to fund out of their pocket for the next, would it be? It would be 5 years for the wife and 7 years for the husband. So I don't know, $250,000 is pretty expensive. So that's where you realize what you're doing is you're just buying a deferred income annuity with that money, right? So it's like a flexible premium. It's the equivalent would be, putting the lost payments into an annuity that jumped up, so nobody likes annuities. Everybody loves Social Security. And again, like I talked about last week, if you look at the plan to maybe reduce benefits or go to a means tested method, means tested, that's just kind of it's a theory of one solution they could come up with that I've not read it anywhere, but it just makes sense to me. I know it's been talked about in the past, but very politically unpopular, but at some point they're going to have to do that. Or it's just going to fall on the next generation to be totally crushed. And that's likely me because I couldn't claim if I wanted to for another 20 years. And by the time I get there, like the early claiming date is going to be like 68. So kind of like a fun fact about Social Security, you realize when they put it into effect, the average life expectancy of male or female in the US, I think was under the age of 60. So that was back in the 30s that they did it. 30s, 40s, maybe early 40s. I don't know the exact year, but the life expectancy was late 50s and the benefit kicked in at age 60. Now the life expectancy has dramatically improved. And so it's called Old Age Survivors and Disability insurance. It's OASDI. So when it started, it was meant to pay people who reached extremely old age, which the average person did not even get there. Now it's commonplace that nearly everyone, I mean, probably 95% of people collect some form of Social Security. And that's kind of one of the reasons why it's in financial trouble. So just a fun fact on the side there. Okay, so here's their plan. This is my recommendation. Both take it at 66. We could look at taking it earlier because they are going to be funding a little bit out of pocket, but you know what? Not going to go there. They've already made up their mind, and they're just a year away from the wife taking it anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide these rows, and this is where we're going to get into the basics of income planning. Hide columns, and then I've got this guy. Let me see if I can do this right. Unhide. Boom. Okay, here we go. We're gonna go 0. I don't want you to cheat. Not yet, anyway. Okay, so these guys have they've got roughly $700,000 in assets, and that's just just a ballpark without too many details. It is a personal situation, so this is just fairly standard for what I run into, and this could be just about anyone. But what they figured out is they've got a small pension. One of them has a pension, and so they take the pension. We took it out of it. It just simplifies the numbers. The pension is just there, and what they need after the pension is, most of their money's in an IRA. So what they need is $57,000 a year gross to maintain a healthy standard of living, and they don't believe they'll even need that much. And so what I do, the result of this is saying, in the first year, there was 0 collection from Social Security. That's in either scenario. So that's 57,000. I was playing with this yesterday. So I want to do, and let me just clean this up a little bit. I was messing with some formulas. Okay. And so it's not showing negative. Bear with me. It'll just take a second. And I was doing internal rate of return formulas in here, but I have a better way of doing it. So apologize for that. First year, no collections. Second year, the wife collects, the husband doesn't. So their gap is 37,000. If they go to 70, it's another 57,000, right? All these negatives. So what happens is at 70, when they're both hit 70, then they're actually on a surplus. So then they can start saving $15,000 per year. So what we're going to figure out is to that 22-year mark, which is about life expectancy for both of them. Now, once they, at some point, you're going to get there, there's a 40% chance one of them lives till 90, bunch of different stats. So we can, in any individual case, we can look at the backstop. But again, we're just talking about how to get the most out of it. So, but on the age 70, so the age 66 scenario, they're always kind of running a slight gap, right? And after, the first 3 years, when the husband starts collecting, they're only down $373. That's walking around money for a month or two. Not a big deal. So essentially nothing, but their plus side. So after 22 years, we're going to look at the entire gap. So this is the easiest thing to do, the easiest basic income planning. Get all your income sources together, decide what you're doing with Social Security, and figure out over 20 years, 25, whatever time period you want to plan for. I took these guys to life expectancy, and the idea is to show them with plenty of money left over at life expectancy. So over 22 years, they're $138,000 in the hole. If they both take it at 66, they're $108,000 in the hole if they waited until 70. So all that extra money out of pocket is not, all the extra money out of pocket is only giving them an extra $30,000. Not that impressive considering what it cost them in the beginning to do it. Okay. So when I say, I look at this and I say, okay, game, set, match, you guys are finished. You're good. You're set. I mean, they got a bunch of money, right? They could take, if they decide to take it at 66, they could take $138,000. They could stuff it under their mattress and just, take $100 bills out every year. I call it the Mattress Strategy. to be foolproof, you got to have a good fire rated safe under the bed. Don't put it under your mattress. That might be uncomfortable. But anyway, the idea is like zero growth, put it in a safe place because, we're talking about safety. Why don't you just throw it under your bed? And that's all they need to do. They put $138,000 under their mattress and they'd be able to sustain their lifestyle. Now, and remember also, they figured this was a bit high just to account for some discretion and, some oops or ifs and all that stuff that happens from year to year. So I look at that and say, all right, done. You can retire. But then the contrarians, the cynics, are going to point to what I would naturally think of. Now, we look at the 5 keys of retirement: income, inflation, volatility, control, and legacy, right? So they don't have a problem with income. They've got most of their money in cash assets right now because they're very risk averse. They're not growing much, but they do have all the money they need to retire, and it's a long time before they have to worry about it. But they've got control of their assets. They are limiting market volatility because they're not invested in the market, and they've got a legacy because they're not going to spend it all. And so it's all there. But the only thing we haven't accounted for is the inflation. All right. So we'll just pick kind of the standard number, the CPI, politics. I don't believe it. Obviously, we know lots of things have dramatically increased in price in the last year, and they're saying the CPI is like 4.8%. That's a bunch of baloney, if you ask me. But average over time is like 2.8, 2.9. We'll call it 3%. So what happens, I plug that number in there, and the income need in this column is going to increase by 3% per year. So you've got $109,000 of income need at 3% inflation down in 22 years. Big difference. So what does it do to the gap? It's going to make a huge difference in the gap. And you look down here, still $30,000 difference between the two of them. I'd give the nod to the earlier strategy because you're going to save so much more up front. But then that's oops. So we got 4 things accounted for. We picked the 5th one, the inflation. It's like, oh no, we've got to do something about that, right? Because, nobody's going to want to put all their money under the mattress. Go get 0.1% at the bank right now. And I assume that'll be a little bit higher at some point, but we don't know when that's going to happen. Right. So, this is a situation. And what's the solution to this? Well, obviously, you probably not talk them into going into the market because they're risk averse, but, certainly do need to grow the money somehow. Okay. And that's where, the next phase of this. So let's assume this is their income gap is column O. All right. And I am going to go to, wish I had a different screen. I'm changing a few things here, right? Because I was actually at my solution, right? So what I did is, as you recall over here, it was a $677,674 gap. And I went into the amortization software and I just, on an annual basis, I plugged in cash flows of all that. So and the interest rate is 0%. So that's money in a fireproof box in your basement under your bed. That's what they would need to fund retirement to that point. But again, okay, what if one lives 2 or 3 years longer? What if we got to put a new roof on the house? Well, every 4 or 5 years, we like to have a newer car, or there's, it's called discretionary spending. Or in the worst case, what if we need long-term care? What if we have medical expenses and all this extra stuff? So that they've got to have some growth in the portfolio, no matter how they do it. Right. So, that's 0%. So what kind of growth do they need to get to a reasonable result? So what that last column at the bottom there is programmed to do is we're going to solve for that. So what we're going to do is you start with 677, and that's about what they have. If they only had 500,000, then we could put or 400,000, we could put that money in. That's where it will get a bit more technical and specific. So we'd start with what you have. and we'd plug in an interest rate to see what your hurdle is. So 3%. Let's just go really conservative. So that's your fixed annuity rate. If you just want a guaranteed rate, you get one for 5 years, and then you get another one, and you roll it over, 3%. Okay. And we can talk about what the stock market does, but then you're going to have the ups and the downs and all that stuff, which these guys don't like. And oftentimes it's a combination of the two. So 2.96 nominal, which is an effective annual yield. So that's, divided by 12. So that's a monthly rate, compounded monthly, which is how a lot of like CDs, annuities, things like that work. So that's fair. Unknown down here, hit calculate, boom. So if they get 3% on their assets, they can spend all this money. They can increase for inflation every year and be, in 20 years, taking almost twice as much income out. They've got control of the money the whole time. They've got no market volatility because it's a guaranteed rate, and they've got plenty left over for a legacy or for emergency expenses, right? That's only 3%. Basic look at income planning. Now, if we go to 4%, that's still pretty dang conservative. Because there's going to be a point in time when you might want to get into the market, big correction or whatever it is, or maybe you set, in these guys' case, you could, wait for it to settle a bit and throw $100,000 in there and just kind of put it out there and say, hey, we'll worry about it in 20 years. I mean, buy and hold long run, that might work pretty well. So 4%, what's that going to do? We're at $586,000. So that's barely invading the principal, about $90,000 on the downside. I would consider, so in this situation, these guys are very well positioned for retirement, because they don't even have to take a lot of risk to have a very, very good result. They're going to spend, how much was it? I'll show you, how much was it that they were going to spend? So it shows at the end, it was 677,000. So they spent 677. They have 586 left. That's a very good result if you're conservatively minded. Now, whether they use an annuity or not is their choice, but that's where it goes into. What are you going to do to get the yield you need? So is this about annuities? Let's see. Was it last week? Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago I did Social Security, and then last week I did the annuity alternatives. There's not a whole lot of stuff out there with no risk, and certainly nothing besides annuities that's no risk, or no risk plus some yield. So to combine those two things is unique, especially in this environment. So they spent 677, they got 586 left. Now let's look at it again. 5 keys. Do they have the income they need? Yes. Green check mark, right? I don't know if you guys remember that. Do they have inflation accounted for? Absolutely. We show them drawing nearly twice as much income out of their portfolio in 22 years. That's pretty good. Puts them into their mid to late 80s. Very good planning point. And so this, obviously, do they have control? Yeah, they have control over it. They've got it in safe stuff. They get to move it around every few years. They could probably build a ladder, all that stuff, but their money is always in their hands, and they can do what they want with it. Limited market volatility. Absolutely. They've completely eliminated it recently. If they do an annuity, they still will continue to do so. And do they have a legacy? Most definitely they do. There's 586,000. So if one of them lives to age 91, there's plenty of opportunity for money there. Now, I mean, you want to look, well, let's say in a few years they decide, all right, the market's at a pretty nice buy point, and maybe our annuity's doing 4% or averaging 4 or 5. Let's just do 5%. So let's say you get into the market at a good point, you get some pretty conservative funds. The annuity's doing 4, the market's doing 6, it's 5, right? What's 5? I don't know what the answer is because I didn't run this one, but hit calculate, and that's $841,000. So pretty reasonable assumption, and I've made this claim before. It is, plan for income, have discretion over the assets that you invest, have control over the money. Doing an annuity the right way, you can certainly take the income, own an annuity, and increase your wealth through retirement. So a 5% rate on investment over 20 years is still very, very conservative assuming there's going to be a good buy point in the market. You know, between now and the next 20 years, I think in the next year or two, there's going to be some incredible opportunities to buy good values in the stock market. So that is my spiel for these guys. I think it makes a whole lot of sense for them to use an annuity, given the fact that they're risk averse. We don't need to make a whole lot of, good A+ company would be a real viable spot, be as safe as anything and arguably safer. I could address that on the podcast as well, but that's up to them. They may want to stay in cash and just, it's an uncertain time. They may want to sit around because they're not in a major hurry doing so, but at some point they need to get on it and put some yield on those assets. But again, not so much about a case study for them, but the point being that this is a basic way of looking at it, just to say long-term, get your income set up in certain spot, or get your income mapped out, figure out what your gap is, slap some inflation on it if you want to, and see how much you need over the next 20, 25, or 30 years, whatever time period you want to look at, and see what the total cost of that over time is. I've done this for probably hundreds of people. And when someone's really set up for retirement, I've seen a lot of people look at it this way and say, oh, I mean, it's one thing to say, we need an extra $10,000 a year. It's completely another to say, well, over 20 years, that's only $200,000. You can set $200,000 in the kitchen cupboard if you wanted to. As long as your house doesn't burn down, then you can always go get it. So it usually relaxed people a lot and got them to think about things, in very simple terms, instead of getting complicated with a lot of the financial analysis and, portfolio theory and all that stuff that is extremely difficult to analyze. So anyway, I hope you guys got something out of this and understand that my point, my objective is to help everyone make good decisions. I don't know what these guys are going to do. And, I'm not going to push them. We had a couple of really good conversations and they've got time. They're not in a hurry, but at least to put their minds at rest, I feel like I did a pretty good job just helping them understand that really here's an efficient way to approach Social Security. Here's an illustration we can use to prove that you do not have an income problem. So it's the opposite of what a lot of salespeople do. A lot of salespeople will say, oh, you got to go here. You got to do this. You got to do that. Instead, we want to look at what is the problem really? And is there one? With these guys, there's not. Their only issue, of course, is inflation. And they're going to have to take some time to think about and do that. So I've had people sit on it for 2 or 3 years and come back and say, you know what? It makes a whole lot of sense and I'm ready to do something. So it just depends. And some people, they might look at it and say, you know what? We're going to sit on cash. And then, if the market drops 30%, we're just going to dump it all in and we're going to grow a bunch. Some people like to do it that way. Some people like to say, hey, I'm going to set a couple $100,000 aside and make sure that it's there to meet our needs for a long, long time. And then we'll let the rest of it, we'll worry about it later. So hopefully you guys realize how simple it can be to plan the basic income planning with annuities. Again, when you get to the bottom line, when we get to the end of it, annuities are just an option. So you got to compare those against the other options you have. You'll find these days the annuities are going to give you the best yield with safety. So you got to decide what's important to you. So if you want to talk about it, you want me to look at your numbers, you want me to run you through the spreadsheet, I'll send it to you. It's an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet. Very simple, very easy. But you can give me a call at 800-438-5121, or you can go to AnnuityStraightTalk.com. Newsletter goes out every weekend. Recently, I've been just sending out the podcasts with the newsletter because it's a lot of people that have been reading this for 3 or 4 years will notice that it's a repeat. Maybe they forgot about it, but these are really core issues for retirement that I think it's important to remind people. And also, thousands of people have signed up since I wrote this newsletter. So obviously they should have a chance to see my take on it if they're interested. But on AnnuityStraightTalk.com, newsletter page, or any other green schedule a call button, hopefully, crossing my fingers, I want to see the website redesigned in a couple of weeks. I'm going to do a podcast and walk you guys through it when it happens. I'm pretty excited about it. Did a photo shoot a couple of weeks ago. I think it's going to be good. But get a hold of them if you want if you need some help with anything. And remember to subscribe to YouTube or the podcast if you'd like to be notified when the next episode comes out. Next week, I think I'm going to introduce you to one of my advisors. They're both having scheduling conflicts, but they're going to come up with some topics and talk about how there are a lot of people around the country that agree with me and a lot of people that want a part of Annuity Straight Talk, and I'm happy to share it so that we can help as many people as possible. Everyone, have a great weekend, and thank you so much for joining me. My name is Bryan Anderson once again, and I will see you for episode 21 next week. Thank you. Have a great day. Goodbye.
You have been listening to Annuity Straight Talk. The preceding information is for informational and educational purposes only and does not represent tax, legal, or investment advice. The views expressed by guests on this program are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Annuity Straight Talk or its partners. No information presented today should be acted upon without meeting with a qualified and licensed professional. It is important that you read all insurance contract disclosures carefully before making a purchase decision. Guarantees are based on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the insurance company.